Alright, let's get into it. So we've got a Aku 88, work in progress, low poly car. Let's have a look. So you've got some nice use of bloom here, and let's actually get this picture up. You've got a nice nice choice of colours and stuff, and I think you were saying how you're still working on the materials and everything. Okay, so you've definitely got the low poly look. If you want to go even lower, I'd maybe even use an image or something here to minimise the amount of low poly, but because this is starting to blur into that sort of fake high poly, low poly look. But so far, you've definitely got a good shape going on. Maybe I'd add just a little bit more of a noticeable edge here so we can see a nice bend and movement. You've got nice use of blur and a seemingly good lighting setup. Maybe consider using a secondary light so that this one can be a bit less prominent, and then having a slightly different color on this side here. Consider your background too. Maybe still using like a bit of extra detail or something around the background. Maybe even a vignette to have a little bit more detail in the corners, with a little bit of depth of field too. But so far it's looking pretty good. I just think maybe trying to adjust some of the corners here so they don't smooth, like just so then you can have a bit more definition in the angles and stuff in some of the areas, and actually show off the high poly, like the low poly look. I just feel like that sort of stuff might really add to it. But so far it's yeah, it's really nice. I think maybe just extending some of these polygons up just a little bit more so it's a bit more connected with the light there. But other than that, yeah, I think you'll just end up progressing it a little bit more on yourself. Hope that helps. Now I've got Old Sprinkles 8661. I did an animation test. Any tips on making it better, and any idea what should be there instead of the cub? Okay, let's get it up. So maybe consider just using smooth shading on these areas here, as well as a bevel around the edges, just so I can catch the light a little bit differently. Oh, and I think you meant cube. Okay, so I would be thinking contextually about what you want to have on there, like what do you want to present. So maybe you want to present a model of yours, or maybe like a sculpted bust of, say, a character or something. But again, yeah, I'd be considering using shade smoothing, a bit of reflection, bit of motion blur if you don't have any already. Like you do have some reflection here, but maybe consider using a HDRI map to get a bit more interesting shadows and stuff around these areas. As well as when you're making the background, add a bit of a curve going up here, so it's just like have the flat part, extrude, 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 and then just going straight up. It'll just add a bit more dimension to everything. And a good lighting setup, but also add some color to those lights and possibly give two lights, so from two different directions. One being maybe slightly yellow, one slightly blue, or going in for like a cyberpunk, like pink and green look or something like that. Consider as well adding some details around the corners here, like little bolts and stuff too, or little wires connecting everything up together. Possibly also adding in some seams where this flat bit would have come in and out of, as well as considering that this would be up above, so it seems to maybe hide away, which might not be what you want. But yeah, also looking into a bit of bloom and stuff too to make sure it shines a bit nicer, and just looking into the different colors and stuff that you use after you've lit the scene, just like giving it a bit more of a metallic feel, maybe some extra little edges and stuff in here to give it a bit more detail. But so far, yeah, maybe considering a nice model that you might have in there, maybe like a gem or a diamond, something that would be coming out of there, like if I was a mad scientist or something and I had this in my room. Hopefully that gives you a bit of stuff to work with. But yeah, cheers. Alright, then we got Give Me the Soy, my first Blender render using Blender kit models and materials. Okay, so I'm going to just assume that you haven't done any of the modeling or the materials, so I'm going to look into everything but that. Alright, so first thing I'm going to say is just composition. So I would maybe consider looking into the rule of thirds and stuff, but basically I'd be moving the camera a bit further back just so I can get a bit more of this bed look and everything, being able to see the ground just a little bit more, and maybe having it a bit more like as it's coming back, looking a bit more forwards and a bit down, just so then we can be a bit more front on with everything. I do like the way that you've set up the lighting and stuff too, but just considering using a slightly colored light, maybe shining a directional light through this so it can light up the scene a little bit more, making it just a bit more interesting. But yeah, I'd be exploring a bit more about composition. You've definitely got some good ideas about how you're placing things on the table, as well as placing the bin around, having a bit more context around everything. But yeah, I may be like just making this bed a little bit bigger so it would fit a person maybe a bit more, because this seat is giving a nice dimension of how big a person would be, where this probably wouldn't fit them. Maybe this is like a lounge, but it doesn't really look like a lounge with how you set it up. So just looking in the proportions of stuff. And yeah, maybe adding a bit more detail on this window just to give it a bit more interest, because at the moment it's quite simplistic. Even just a little trim around the edges and maybe a bit more of a reflection of the glass could add a bit more detail to it. But yeah, so I'd just be looking a bit more in detail about colouring your lighting, the direction of your lights, and the composition to try and show the scene as a whole. So I'd be looking into like how people do renders of rooms and stuff, and just look into how they've composed bedrooms and stuff like that, just so you can look into that. So far, yeah, it's really nice. Maybe even consider adding a bit of bloom as well to give a bit more of shine to those lighter areas. Cool. All right, then we got ShankD, toaster animation, need feedback. All right, let's open it up. Okay, nice sort of use of rim light. Toast, okay. Interesting. Okay, so I guess the music will, if you have any sound, I'll just see here if we've got any sound. Oh yeah, we've got some sound going. So I'd just make the turns a little bit less aggressive. They're quite a swing. I do like the easing out, but still I think they could just be toned down a little bit more. I do like your model and stuff too. Maybe consider using a HDRI to get a bit more of a reflection on some of these like shinier pieces. The toast model looks really good. Everything seems to be modeled quite nicely. I'd just be thinking as well, maybe adding in just a tad more color to maybe the lights and the background, just to give it a bit more life. And at this point here, maybe just light it up just a little bit more rather than it being so shadowy. But yeah, that's really nice. The flip up, and yeah, just considering maybe just a bit more color to it. And yeah, maybe just easing things in just a bit slower, maybe just a little bit less aggressive. But that's sort of just me. Also, this last piece here, get that little line off. I don't think you intended on that being there. So it's just a lot of little things there. But yeah, nice work. That's really good. Hopefully that helps. And now we've got my friend made a radioactive donut eat. Nice. Okay, so I'd probably just up the resolution a little bit on the lighting just so it's not as grainy and stuff. And maybe add a little bit more bloom so that the light shines out just a tad more. And probably even go in there with a secondary light or two just to light up the scene just a little bit more so it's not in pure darkness. Maybe give a bit of fog and stuff in the background so it's a nice transition. But yeah, no, that's really cool. Nice work. Alright, we got Robbie Rob 13. Is there anything I can add to make this better? So I do like the quite shallow depth of field. I might even consider adding in something just a bit more in the foreground, even just like taller grass, just to hide a bit more of this fire, and just giving it a bit more depth by adding in something a bit higher up here. In terms of the model's quite good. Maybe just even positioning the character just slightly more, like with their fingers and stuff, giving it the character a little bit more attitude, maybe adding a bit more detail to their shoes, and maybe a bit more of a normal map as well to the mud stuff on their pants, just give it a bit more height. I do like the character model. I feel like you've used a slightly colored light. Maybe just consider adding a secondary light just to lift up some of the colors here. And possibly adding a secondary hill in the background, maybe starting from around here, just to go over here behind him, which will just give a bit more depth and stuff too. As well as possibly adding a little bit more bloom if you haven't, just in on his lighter parts. It'll just help connect up with the sun there. And yeah, maybe as well just consider adding a HDRI to the image, just to get some minor reflections around too, and lighting it up in a slightly different way. So far, really good use of lighting, great character and stuff, great composition. It's just adding some maybe little extra details in there that might bring it up a bit more. Now we've got ACW393. I found some weird mushrooms. Not final, but at least something to show. Feel free to comment. Okay, cool. So I'm going to choose this one to comment on rather than this one, just because it's quite dark. I really like the textures and stuff that you've used on here. Maybe just consider connecting up the stalk with the mushroom just a little bit more, maybe by lightening it up there or adding a bit more a texture or bumps to this stalk part here. I'd probably consider using a softer light just to make like an area light, just to make it a bit softer around these edges here. Consider as well a HDRI for adding more color and reflections and stuff to the piece, but also consider adding a background, probably even like just a photo of a landscape or something that's a bit blurred. Use a colored light as well instead of a white light, just to give it a bit more life, and then consider also lighting it from another angle of possibly like a less intense blue, just to light up some of these little areas here. With this rock, or these rocks, I'd maybe consider pushing up the normal map just a little bit more and giving the model maybe a little bit more resolution, maybe just to get some more bumps, but I could be incorrect there. I think you might have enough already. It's just maybe consider where you've placed them because of the shadows. And I do like the ground. Maybe it could be a bit less shiny, but it could depend on if once you use a colored light and an area light to soften it out a little bit more. And possibly adding some of this grass at the points of contact for the mushroom and the rocks too. It'll give it a smoother transition for them to be in the ground. As well as probably lighting up that grass, maybe having a bit more variation in the color, as well as adding in possibly some hills in the background too, and that would probably tie in with a different background image, just to make it a bit of more complete piece. Also with composition, give it a bit more room on the top here, and then maybe placing it a bit more to the side, yeah, just to get it completely off center, but it would depend on how you've positioned these mushrooms as well. So just maybe have a bit more of a think about how you're going to compose the image once it's finished. But nice. Now we've got Crossman 12, tutorial 4. I'm learning so much from all of these. What do you guys think? Let's have a look. So great use of colors, great composition. Maybe you could have the composition just a little bit tighter, but that's just me. I like the use of the different colors of lighting and stuff that you've got going on. It really adds a bit more depth to it. Maybe consider as well using a HDRI just to get some more variation in reflections and stuff. And I'm not sure if you have, but maybe consider using a bit of bloom too, just to make these lights shine up a bit more. And nice use of bevel. Oops, excuse me. Thank you. Okay, and so good use of chords, nice soft lighting and everything too, which is really nice, adds to the feel of it. Maybe consider just a few different camera angles too, using depth of field, but so far, yeah, it's really coming along. Like, I'm sure that it'll progress the more you go into it. Yeah, good start. Nice. And then we've got Amir004. Interior scene I made after seeing Blenderguru's tutorial. How do I improve it? Excuse the white guy, I forgot to disable him for the renders. Okay, let's just make this a little bit lighter. so that we can see it a bit more. Paste as new image. Okay. Colors, curves. So we can see it a little bit more. And I feel like oh, let's just repeat that. There we go. I feel like maybe this is a little bit too bright, but it just means that we can see the image just a bit more rather than it being so dark like in this scene here. So let's methodically go around. Alright, so nice floorboards. Maybe you could add a little bit of reflection on it if you haven't already. Nice little model of this like tree plant here. Again, maybe just look into adding a bit more reflection to some of your materials. Nice simple paintings and stuff here too. Nice seat that you've got going on there, and like placement of books and stuff too. It adds quite a lot of realism to the piece. And nice little textured pillows and everything there. Nice use of colors, and adding the glasses and then the glasses as well. Nice chair and rug. We've got like a couple of little interesting objects and stuff around. And good ones here. Maybe just considering placing an image behind here rather than using the HDRI, because I'm pretty sure I can just see the HDRI there. Definitely still keep it in there as like using a HDRI, but it'd be better just to have an image plane or something behind it that's just a bit higher quality, and maybe something that you can control a little bit more in terms of placement to make it even more interesting. I really like the use of the light too. And I like how the plant and stuff is getting caught on the window there. I think that it's more just your composition and your like choice of lighting. Maybe you could put the light up just a bit higher, just to get a bit more of a cut through that picture frame there, and just making it a bit brighter like I did. But also consider about what your actual focus is on, as the camera was quite far back. I maybe would zoom it in. Let's see if I can crop it just a little bit more, just because I feel like you're trying to put everything into this picture where I feel like it's taking away from the picture itself. So maybe let's look at let's see. I don't want to crop off too much. Let's just go there and see. Yeah, maybe just a tad more. Alright, I might have cropped it a little bit too tight, but it just makes it a bit more focused now on the lounges and the curtains and light coming in, where I think in, say, your original piece, there was just a lot of extra stuff that was all trying to crowd for attention. So I was just trying to chop that stuff off a bit more. But yeah, so hopefully that helps you have a bit better idea of where you could go next with this piece. Okay, now we've got FlySu 65, made in Blender, 2.81, rendered in Eevee, part 3, low poly. Okay, let's have a look-see. Alright, interesting. Okay, so first thing I would say is maybe just have the lighting just a little bit more intense, maybe even a little bit lower, just so it's not as brown everywhere. And maybe even consider using another light from another angle of like a blue or something like that, just to give it a bit more depth possibly. And And maybe considering using a bit of depth of field, just a bit more, placing maybe, like, consider how you've placed these to give a bit more of an interesting feel. So I would probably move this one over here a bit more and further back, and then this one I would probably place over here, and then having another one over here. And now in terms of the skeletons, I would position them a little bit more rather than them just being stock standard standing there. So making them rest a little bit more. Look at some reference images and stuff too to see how they could be positioned, maybe a bit better. And I would probably give them a slight yellow tinge just so then they link into this sort of dusty look that it's around here. Maybe also consider adding some dust particles and stuff going around too, maybe like sandy sort of windy effects. And consider adding maybe slight motion blur and a slight bit of bloom as well to some of the shinier parts here too. And possibly even adding some more resolution to the these hills here too, so they can just be a bit sharper, and then putting a normal map over the top to give it a bit more of a bumpy, rocky look. But that's really good. I think you should be really happy with that. Nice work. Alright, now we've got Keely Poop. Can I make this scene look much better? Okay, yeah, so I would be looking into composition first. Yeah, it's quite a good composition so far, but I would maybe move this car back just slightly and maybe chop off a little bit of the ends here, just so it's a bit of a tighter composition. And I do like your use of bloom. I like the models and stuff that you've used too. Consider also putting in a HDRI to get a nicer reflection and stuff on the car to add a bit more detail. Maybe just punching up the color a little bit more. So I'm just gonna paste it in here using saturation. Just gonna punch on that lighting a little bit more, and then I'm probably going to go in and do some stuff with curves. So you can just make it a bit more of a bolder sort of image going on there, and then yeah, like I was saying, maybe just cropping off a little bit more here. What is it? Crop to selection. So it's just a little bit tighter, and then I'd probably just, if I can do it, yeah, let's just cut that out. I did miss the wheel a little bit there on the side there, but you can kind of see the, oh no, I'm not going to do it that way. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. But yeah, just so it's a little bit tighter in there, maybe like just a little bit over here or something here, and then we can crop that section out too. And so now it's going to be just a bit of a tighter image, something like that. That was really quickly done and crudely done. But yeah, just looking into post-processing and like heightening the contrast and the saturation and stuff a little bit too. Maybe even adding in some extra details and stuff in the background. Yeah, hopefully that helps give you some things to look into next. Right now we've got Aaron Pre. I made a Dark Souls bonfire. It's a bit dark, but I dig it. Be brutal on your feedback, please. All right. Okay. Yeah, nice little water effects and stuff. Maybe consider adding a bit more depth of field. Okay. So in terms of composition, maybe I just lift the camera up a little bit higher. It feels like I'm very close to the ground here. And even consider adding a vignette around the edges, possibly, if you feel like that'll add to it. Look into how you light the scene to maybe even just add slight blue light that would probably be the moon from one of these angles here to light up the side of these castles, just give a bit more dimension, or whatever these things are. And possibly adding a few more of these trees around to give a bit more texture around the scene. It looks like you have them here, but they don't really show up very well, so maybe making them a bit thicker and stuff over here. I would look into adding a bit more motion blur and stuff so we can get a smoother look for these embers and stuff coming up. And I can't really see much of a fire there, just embers coming up. But as well as I can see some sort of, I think they're birds in the background too. Maybe just moving them a bit more forwards and making them more prominent. I like the dust and stuff moving along too, but yeah, just looking into your composition a bit more as you're coming through with this final shot. I do like the emerging from the ground, but I think you could maybe start it from here, like cutting it off the front part and just having it transition from black just a little bit more, so it goes straight into the actual interesting part a little bit more. And let's check, there's I would maybe consider the placement of that that like sun too, so it's not so hidden from the flag. Maybe just over so the flag just tips over it a little bit now and then. But yeah, no, it's going really good. Awesome work. Alright, now we got Catrosalina, trying to make it look like a plastic controller's item. Got any tips? Okay. So we've got a nice use of bevel and stuff around the edges, which is really good. I'd be looking into just different material types first. So giving it maybe like, it depends on if you're going for like that plasticky sort of look, and maybe it might have a slight reflection, but also put in then the HDRI around there just to give some slight variations to the reflection, so it's not just reflecting on grey here. Also considering the use of depth of field if you haven't already, which can give it a nice sense of scale. And yeah, like just, yeah, I would be thinking about the background too, of maybe depending if you want to have like a bit of wood or something, like it's on a table, giving a bit more context and stuff could really add to it. You can maybe even possibly add like crop it a little bit closer in, just so that there can be a little bit more focus on the actual image there itself. But yeah, I think like stuff like depth of field will really add to it, as well as adding a HDRI and looking into the slight different materials. Even also using a slight normal map too to have little imperfections and stuff, as well as the reflectivity, but making it look like it's got a few smudges and stuff on it too, as if someone's been handling it. I think that could really add to the piece. Alright, hopefully that helps. Now we've got David DeBoss 07 Zenitsu Nichirin sword from Demon Slayer. So we have two good images. There was a third one, but I feel like these two really show it off. First thing I would say is just giving a bit more breathing room to the edges of this sword. Maybe you can crop it a little bit tighter too, rather than having all this extra room down here. Things I'd be considering is the use of bloom and stuff to have this have it a bit more shine. Got a really nice gold look to it, but also consider I think, yeah, you do have a HDRI or something involved in here too, so it's just trying to let it capture on all these little areas. But it's going really nice, all the little imperfections and stuff you've got going on there. Really nice model and well made. Maybe just looking into the slight little things like where I feel like this needs to be cut in a little bit more, but that's just me. And yeah, so it may be looking into a bit more of a background and a bit of bloom, looking into using a slightly yellow light or something like that, just to give it a bit more life to it. And yeah, and then for this, consider as well having the depth of field, also trying to make this nice and smooth. See how I've got some little bumps in here, but it depends on the kind of look that you're going for. And yeah, really nice little reflections and nice textures and stuff that are really subtle on there. Really good. But yeah, and I think same thing here. You can have it maybe on a bit more of an angle, so you can see a bit more of the blade, and then this stuff will be a little bit closer up into like this bottom section here, and then coming out, just so we can have a bit more sense of a scale, as well as being able to utilize depth of field just that little bit more. Also, I'd be considering now contextually where you're going to place this, or if it's just going to be a standalone model. But I think maybe just putting it like on a little stand on like a piece of wood with maybe a cement wall or something behind it. Just it can give it a lot more style, and then you can work with how you light it through, say, windows or something like that too. Could really add to like the story or whatever of this sword. Yeah. All right, and then we got RNGDev. I think I said that all good. We'll love to hear your feedback. Okay, let's have a look. So first thing, I would just probably cut off the top and bottom of this to make it just that little bit tighter around the actual image here. I like your use of lighting, and I think as you have used probably a slightly colored light, I'd also consider adding a secondary light going in the other direction of just a slightly different color, which could add a little bit more depth to the scene. Also consider the resolution that you're using these lights at, just so it doesn't look as grainy. But nice models. I can see it's quite low poly, and you've got a good sense of scale and stuff going around here. Even considering using a bit of reflection and also adding a HDRI just to add a little bit more detail to some of the reflective pieces. Maybe adding a bit more of a smoothness on the end of this these slides here, just so it's got a bit more bevel and it just looks a bit more like maybe clay or something, like how you're getting that sort of feeling across with the rest of the models. There's a bit of a strange thing going on with this light reflection here too, so you could either clean this up in post, or yeah, it might just be important to look at how things are reflecting with all of this. I'd maybe consider a bit more about where you're placing these bits of grass. Think about it as like, yeah, you've got it here next to the tree, but yeah, usually at like connecting points of things that are touching the ground, and like just trying to make it blend a little bit more with the taller parts. So it's on edges where things are beginning to like connect into the ground. Really nice model here that you've got of this lamp. And maybe just consider adding a little bit more resolution just to this so it doesn't look as jagged, like just a little bit more. But yeah, no, overall that's really good. Maybe also consider adding a little bit of bloom onto some of these areas just so it shines just that little bit more, but it might be subtle. Yeah, nice work. Alright, now we got RCWD. My friends see it well, but I think it has errors. What do you think? Okay, so first thing is I'm going to just bring it into this and just, where is it? I'm going to bring up the brightness a little bit more just to see what's actually in the image. Okay. So what I would say is that yeah, it is quite dark, but I know that that is the sort of scene that we've got going on. I will just make it a little bit brighter. I'd also add in a slight bit of color to the lights. So when we put it in, it's just got like that little bit of extra light and warmth, or you could even go the opposite way and make it like a bit more of a bluer color or something like that. Or there's another one that looked kind of weird here, like a greeny yellow light, just to give it a bit more emotion to the scene. I'd also maybe try and get some fog and stuff in here to break up the solid stream of light coming out. Add a bit more bloom, I think, to the actual light here too. And I think look at where things are clipping through, adding maybe a bit more detail to these. I'm pretty sure they're claws or something, or maybe like tentacles and stuff. So just add a bit more detail into this. But I think definitely changing the color of the light will really help. Using maybe even possibly a bit of motion blur and depth of field to give it a bit more sense of scale. Even using a bit of a vignette around the edge just to darken it and like bring us into the scene a little bit more. And look at the size of your textures to make sure they're maybe a bit bigger and maybe have a bit more depth. Like so maybe use actual grass here and grass imperfections on the little cracks and stuff here too, just to make the area look a bit more worn, a bit more real and stuff. And maybe even adding in some trash and stuff that's fallen out of this trash can. In terms of the composition though too, I'd maybe just tighten it up just a little bit more, just so we're a bit more drawn into the character that's there. But yeah, no, that's really good. I think you should be happy with that. Like this is quite a darker scene too, but yeah, I still think looking into the subtle use of color, like this is quite bright, so I'm gonna maybe tone it down just a little bit more, and then I'll tone down the shot just that little bit more. But yeah, so like it's a bit more subtle, but even if say I remove that green, the green just adds that bit of like danger and stuff into it a bit more. Hopefully that all makes sense, and hopefully you can look into those sort of things and it helps you. Alright, and then we've got Doomsday 2507, looking to improve this. So alright, first thing is composition. So I'll just be giving a bit more room down to the bottom of this beer mug. Maybe look into a bit more references for beer mugs and how their shapes are, because I feel like maybe this isn't the correct shape for a beer. But in terms of like perspiration and stuff on the side too, maybe it would be a little bit smaller. And I do like the color of the beer. I think I saw your post previously where it was a slightly different color, but it's nice. And I do like the foam on the top there too. I think with the composition, yeah, it's just once you can make this beer the primary focus, then you can maybe have this in the background using depth of field and blurring it out a little bit. I like the coaster, I like the table, but I feel like this table probably isn't what they would use, because if you look at these boards, each one of these would be like, say, the size of a person's thumb, and so they'd be quite thin rather than being very thick and long like they would on top of the table. So that's just something to consider, unless this is the ground, which I don't think this is what you're going for. And the bricks are nice. I'd be just considering maybe like the different color of bricks and stuff that you use, and these little black dot imperfections, considering how you maybe place them on in different ways using different textures. And possibly, yeah, just maybe slightly changing the angle a little bit more so it's a bit tighter with these other elements in the scene, and probably using a different colored light rather than a white light, and using a HDRI to add a bit more detail and stuff to the reflections that are going on here, with a slightly yellow light and maybe another blue light or something from the other side. Can just give a bit more depth and stuff to the models that you've got here. But yeah, so far that's pretty good. You've got nice colors. Consider also a little bit of bloom too, just to add a bit more shine to some of the little highlights that you've got there. Now we've got stromia, first successful 3D motion tracking attempt. Feedback is appreciated. Okay, so alright, so oh, is there more? Okay. Yeah, so first thing I would say is the resolution of the image behind you is lower than what you are, so either blow yourself out or make the picture a high resolution. Also try and match the colors of the reflections and stuff of the lights coming out. You can either do this in post, but I would try and do it in the scene if you can. The movement is a little bit bumpy in some areas, but that's okay. Like that's not too bad. It's more yeah, just the adding a bit more realism as well to some of the models through the use of materials and through stuff like HDRIs to get a bit more reflection and everything in there. But yeah, the main two things is that you're a higher resolution than the image, and that the colors aren't matching up with the lights on you, so you look outside of it. But yeah, no, not too bad. Yeah, let's have a look at this. Nice. All right, that's everybody. So thanks so much for watching and enjoy yourself, everybody. Bye.